On the evening of July 3rd, 2026, in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, an 18-year-old named Nolan Xavier Wells stood in his family's kitchen and baked salmon for his parents. His mother, Christine, had worked a long day. Dinner was his idea. He was proud of it. And when the plates were cleared, he told her he was heading out for the night. She would later describe that goodbye to CNN in 5 words: hug, kiss, and he left. Nolan was a wide receiver at Southwest Mississippi Community College, home for the summer, weeks away from his 19th birthday, and days away from the workouts he believed would carry him to a Division I roster. That night, he drove his own car to a friend's house to sleep over. The plan for the next day was simple, and it was the most American plan there is. The 4th of July, on the water, with friends. Within 72 hours, his mother would be staring at a phone tracking app, watching her son's cell phone sit at an address on the mainland while her son was nowhere. His father would be standing at the door of another family's house, asking a young man to find his son's car keys, and on the 4th morning, a National Park Service ranger would find Nolan in the water off the northwestern tip of a barrier island called Horn Island. This is not a solved case. I want to say that plainly, right at the top. As of this recording, there are no arrests, no charges, and no official cause of death. What there is one of the most talked about investigations in America right now, a family demanding answers on a national stage, and a storm of rumor so thick that the facts are getting hard to see. So that is what this video is. For the next 40 minutes, you're getting the verified record, what is actually documented, who actually said it, and, just as important, where the record stops and the rumors begin. Because in this case, that line matters more than anything. As we go, hold on to 3 things: his phone, his car keys, and the island itself. This is True Crime Files documentary. Before we go on, people all over the world are paying attention to Nolan's story right now, and this comment section is part of that record too. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. It matters to families like this one that the world is still listening. To understand anything about this case, you have to understand the place, because the place explains why there are so few answers. Horn Island is a barrier island roughly 10 miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast, a long ribbon of sand and pine between the mainland and the open Gulf. It is part of the Gulf Islands National Seashore, managed by the National Park Service, and the Park Service's own description is blunt. There is no staff on the island, no drinking water, no shelter, no facilities, and no communication. You can only reach it by boat. There are no roads, no docks with attendants, and, this became important later, the sheriff confirmed there are no surveillance cameras anywhere on the island. Whatever happened on Horn Island on July 4th was recorded only by the people who were there, on their own phones. And there were a lot of people. The 4th of July is the island's biggest day of the year. A vice president of the United Cajun Navy, the volunteer search group that would soon be pulled into this story, told CNN he spoke with people who described the Northwest Beach that day as packed with boats, with alcohol flowing. Witnesses interviewed later put the crowd in the range of 100 or more people, spread along the sand. But the beauty of that beach hides something. The same Cajun Navy officer described the waters off the northwest tip to NPR in a way that should stop you. There are places where you can be standing in 3 feet of water and within a few steps be in 20. The Jackson County coroner would later add the historical context. The currents on that end of the island are strong, he told CNN, and the barrier islands have seen drownings many times over the years. So hold this picture: a gorgeous, crowded, completely unmonitored island. Water that drops away without warning. Hundreds of phones, and not one official camera. That is the stage. Now, the day itself. On the morning of July 4th, Nolan and a group of his high school friends loaded onto a private boat and headed for Horn Island. These were not strangers. By every account, including his own families, these were young men Nolan had known through Ocean Springs High School, a group he had spent time with before. We know he made it to the island, and we know he was having a good day because there are photographs. His mother later shared photos taken aboard the boat that day, images that show Nolan smiling in blue swim trunks alongside 3 other young men, other boats dotting the water behind them. According to the Jackson County Sheriff's Department, Nolan was last seen around 3 p.m. on the northwest tip of Horn Island, wearing those blue swim trunks and sunglasses. What happened around that time is where the accounts begin. According to Sheriff John Ledbetter, speaking to the Associated Press, the people investigators talked to said Nolan chose to stay on the island, with the assumption that he would ride back to the mainland with someone else. Reporting from multiple outlets adds one more detail from the friend's account, that he had been talking with a young woman on the island. One more piece of the timeline comes from a public statement released days later by the mother of one of the young men on the boat, who is a Jackson County Chancery judge. In that statement, reported by PBS and NPR, she said her son last saw Nolan around 3 p.m., that the group left the island around 4:30, and that the boat was taking on water and having an issue with its bilge pump, the small pump that clears water from a boat's hull. Her statement said her son was interviewed by the sheriff's department and cooperated fully, so the friend's account, as relayed through officials and that statement, is this. Nolan stayed by choice. The boat left around 4:30, and everyone assumed he had a ride. His parents do not believe that account. And we will get to exactly why, in their own words, because they have said it on the record in detail. But first, the night everything changed. Because by the time anyone went looking for Nolan, one thing was already certain, and CNN would later list it among the central unanswered questions of this case. Wherever Nolan was, his cell phone was not with him. Christine Wansley was not worried at first. Her son was 18, it was a holiday, and staying out late with friends was nothing new. She has said in interviews that what broke the normal feeling of that night was not the hour, it was who called. At around 11 p.m., she has put the time at 11:07. One of the young men from the boat called her. She told the journalist Roland Martin that her heart dropped the moment she saw the call because Nolan's friends did not call her. The message, as she and National Reporting describe it, Nolan had not come back from the island and no one had seen him. Think about that sentence the way she had to. Her son had been last seen at 3 in the afternoon. It was now 11 at night, 8 hours. The family immediately ran into a problem most of us would never anticipate. Who do you even report this to? Horn Island sits offshore, inside a national seashore. Christine has described the confusion of that night, calling authorities and trying to determine whether the missing person report belonged to the city, the county, or the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources. By the early hours of July 5th, she had done what modern mothers do. She went to Facebook, according to Newsweek, and posted an appeal, "Please be on the lookout for Nolan." It was unclear, she wrote, whether he had even made it back to land. And while she typed that post, she was already working a second problem, the one that would come to sit at the center of this entire case. She could see her son's phone on a map, and it was not on Horn Island. Hold that. We'll come back to the phone, I promise, because the search came first. The search for Nolan Wells became a genuinely large operation, fast. According to NBC News, it involved the Jackson County Sheriff's Department, the National Park Service, the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, and the United States Coast Guard, and it ran across 2 days. The United Cajun Navy, a Louisiana-based volunteer search and rescue group, mobilized boats, a drone team, and eventually a fixed-wing aircraft. Nolan's father, Elmore, did not wait for any of them. He has said publicly that if he had known anyone with a boat that night, he would have gone out in the dark. He didn't, but at 5 o'clock the next morning, Nolan's football coach, who had seen the family's posts, called and offered his boat. Within the hour, they were on the water. Elmore described that trip at the family's press conference. He walked a long stretch of the island. He rowed the boat around its tip. He noted a family camping overnight on the beach and 2 boats docked nearby. And the thought that has clearly never left him: if his son had simply been stranded there were people to ask for help, and someone should have seen him. They found nothing. The Cajun Navy's rescue specialist and drone operator spent hours on and around the island that Sunday, according to the group's vice president. Nothing. By Sunday night, Nolan Wells had been missing for more than 30 hours, on an island you cannot walk off of, in a case with no cameras, and a phone that was already back on the mainland. His mother's Facebook posts were beginning to travel. Strangers along the Gulf Coast were sharing his photo, 6'1", 180, last seen in blue swim trunks on the north end of Horn Island. Monday morning, at first light, the Cajun Navy put a plane in the air to fly a search grid across the barrier islands. They were still flying it when the call came. At approximately 8:45 on the morning of Monday, July 6th, a National Park Service ranger found Nolan in the water just off the northwestern tip of Horn Island, the same stretch of beach where he was last seen alive. From 300 feet up, the Cajun Navy spotter watched a dozen law enforcement boats converge on the beach and understood what it meant before anyone said it on the radio. Within hours, the family confirmed publicly that it was Nolan. His mother posted that she, his father, and the family were absolutely devastated, and that her heart was broken for a sweet son who was always willing to cheer up and lift up the people around him. She thanked the searchers, the community, and law enforcement, and asked for one thing: time for her family to grieve. The next day, July 7th, Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lind formally confirmed the identification through dental records, according to Locke's. The state medical examiner performed an autopsy that same day at the Coast Lab. And here is the first hard fact about this case's timeline that every viewer needs to understand. Those results were not released, because they cannot be finalized until toxicology testing comes back, and officials told reporters that can take weeks. Nolan Wells would have turned 19 the following month. His high school football coach said in a statement that Nolan was the kind of son, teammate, friend, and student every coach hopes to have, a young man who led by example. His college's president called him an exemplary student and athlete. The school district said it was shocked and heartbroken. A community was grieving. A family was shattered. And then, before the week was out, the case caught fire because of one sentence from the sheriff. In the days after Nolan was found, the Jackson County Sheriff told ABC News that investigators suspected Nolan drowned, that the investigation was continuing, and that there was no information at that point leading them to believe a crime had occurred. Around the same time, a departmental statement circulated widely with the phrase that no foul play was suspected. To the family, and to a very large share of the public watching online, that sentence landed like a verdict delivered before the evidence was in. Christine Wansley said it directly at the family's press conference. When law enforcement told them it was most likely an accidental drowning, it made them uncomfortable. Why, she asked, are we so quick to rush to this? The counterpoint deserves equal air, because this is the verified record, not a prosecution. The coroner told CNN there were no immediate, obvious signs of foul play or trauma, and that the uncertain circumstances were exactly why he requested a full state autopsy. And CNN put the department's timeline in front of a veteran former big city police chief who is black and who said something worth sitting with. The no foul play line may have been a poor choice of words that fed misunderstanding, but nothing about the pace or shape of this investigation is unusual. What's unusual, he said, is the attention. The department, for its part, has kept asking for help. It issued public appeals for original, unedited photos and videos from Horn Island on July 4th, and the department's own wording is striking because it specifically requested material depicting, quote, alleged altercations. It acknowledged the flood of speculation and commentary online and reminded the public there are no cameras on that island. The evidence, if it exists, is in the camera rolls of the people who were there. So here's a question I genuinely want your answer to, and I'll ask it again at the end, because I can see both sides. Days into an active investigation, was the sheriff wrong to publicly say no foul play was suspected? Or was he right to try to calm a firestorm before it burned out of control? Put your answer in the comments. I'm asking honestly, because everything you're about to hear next is the reason that question splits people down the middle. Remember what I asked you to hold on to at the beginning, his phone. Here is everything the record actually contains about it and where each piece comes from. CNN, summarizing the case a week in, listed the central unanswered questions, and one of them is this, verbatim as a question: why didn't Nolan have his cell phone with him? What we know beyond that question comes almost entirely from Christine Wansley herself. She has told this story on the record at the July 10th press conference and in national interviews, and outlets from PBS to CNN have reported it. Everything you hear for the next 2 minutes is her account. On the night Nolan went missing, she called a close family friend, the mother of 2 of Nolan's oldest friends. Those young men pulled up Snapchat's location map, where the friend group tracked one another. She pulled up Life 360, the family tracking app the Wansleys used, and the 2 apps told her something that made no sense. Her son's phone was not on Horn Island. It was on the mainland, at the home of one of the young men who had been on the boat. The family friend went to that house and retrieved the phone. It was not handed over quickly or simply. Christine has described that whole night, in her word, as a runaround. Then came the second discovery. When she and her sister opened the phone, they went straight to Snapchat, because Nolan documented everything. His mother has laughed through tears, telling reporters that he would ask her to take pictures of him on his way to bed. They opened both of his accounts within 24 hours of that day. Inside Snapchat's own expiration window, they found nothing. No saved photos, no snaps from the 4th of July at all. The family believes content was deleted. Their attorney has said publicly that the team believes text messages were deleted as well, and that they are hiring forensic specialists to attempt recovery. Now the line I will draw every single time in this series, those are the family's statements, made publicly, on the record, and reported by national outlets. Law enforcement has not publicly confirmed them, disputed them, or explained them. No one has been charged with anything. But the phone was only half of that night. His father was dealing with the keys. Nolan's car had spent the holiday parked in the yard of the house where he'd slept on July 3rd. On the night he went missing, his father Elmore went to get it. What follows is Elmore Wansley's own account, told at the family's press conference and in national interviews, and it is one of the most quietly devastating pieces of testimony in this entire case. He says a young man at the house, half asleep by his description, told him Nolan was like a brother to him. Elmore asked him then to please go find his son's keys so he could take his son's car home. The young man went inside, came back minutes later, and said he couldn't find them. Elmore moved the other young people away from the house to keep the night from boiling over, and stood by the car. Then one of the young men standing with him got a phone call. It was a girl who said she had been at the house earlier. Nolan's keys, she said, were sitting on top of a gaming console inside. The young man went back to the door. 5 minutes later, Elmore says, "The keys came out. So now I feel like you done lied to me." That is the sentence Elmore used, publicly, to describe the moment. Not an accusation of anything larger. A father, mid-crisis, realizing he could no longer take answers at face value. Same rule as before, stated plainly. This is the father's account, on the record, uncontradicted, but also unconfirmed by investigators, and it has led to no charges against anyone. What it unquestionably did do was set the temperature inside this family. By the time the sun rose on July 5th, the Wansleys had a missing son, a phone that had come home without him, keys that appeared only after a stranger's phone call, and a feeling they have repeated in almost every interview since, in their attorney's now famous phrase, "It's not adding up." And then the internet found the video. Sometime in the days after Nolan was found, a short cell phone clip began ripping across social media. Shaky, distant, shot on the crowded beach at Horn Island on the 4th. In it, voices are raised, and according to the family and their attorney, one of those voices is Nolan's, demanding his phone back. Attorney Ben Crump raised it at the press conference and said other young people who were there identified the voice as Nolan's. The sheriff's department has been studying video from that day. Its public appeal, remember, specifically asked for footage of alleged altercations. For millions of people online, this clip became the case, an argument, a phone, a boy who never came home. Here is what the verified record then did to that certainty, and this, more than anything else in this video, is why rumors and records are not the same thing. A friend of Nolan's named Treston Shepard went on Good Morning America, on camera, under his own name, and addressed the most widely shared version of the viral video directly. "That's the video," he said, "and the person yelling in it is me, not Nolan." Another of Nolan's closest friends, Javon Williams, who was on the island that day but not on the boat, told TMZ that the altercation people kept sharing involved a different friend entirely, someone being calmed down and led away, and that the audio in the clip sounded too clear to have been recorded from that distance. He also said something that stunned the interviewers. As of that appearance, investigators had never contacted him, so the record now holds two things at once, and honest coverage has to carry both. The family's attorney says there is footage in which Nolan can be heard demanding his phone, with witnesses identifying his voice. And the most viral clip claimed as proof of a fight has been publicly claimed on national television by a young man saying the yelling was his. Both of those statements are on the record. They may even both be true, describing different footage. That is precisely the kind of question two autopsies and a forensic phone examination exist to answer. One thing before the next chapter, and I'll keep it to a sentence. Most of you watching aren't subscribed, and this case is about to break. Autopsy results are expected any day, and when they drop, video 2 goes up within 24 hours. If you want to be here when it does, subscribe now. Because the video was never even the deepest contradiction in this case. The deepest one is about why Nolan stayed on that island at all. If he stayed, every account of July 4th ends the same way. The boat leaves around 4:30 and Nolan is not on it. The question that decides everything is why. And on that question, the record contains two versions that cannot both be true. Version 1 comes from the friends, as relayed by the sheriff and by that judge's public statement. Nolan chose to stay, to keep talking with the young woman he'd met, planning to catch a ride back with another group. In this version, everyone acted in good faith, and a series of assumptions ended in tragedy. Version 2 was laid out by attorney Ben Crump at the press conference. His team says the young woman herself gives a different account, that Nolan told her he was going back to get on the boat with the boys. The boys say Nolan told them he was staying with her. Crump's framing was blunt. One of them is telling the truth, and one of them is not, and finding out which is the whole ballgame. Nolan's parents have added their own testimony, which is not evidence of what happened on the island, but is evidence of who their son was. His father says he drilled one rule into Nolan for years and quoted it to CNN: "If you go with a group, you stay with the group." He has said flatly that no one will convince him his son chose to stay on a remote island, without his phone, with a workout he'd been training toward all summer scheduled for that Monday. His mother told reporters she cannot fathom it either. And on the other side of the ledger, fairness requires the full context. The mother of one of the young men, the chancery judge, said in her public statement that her family also wants to know what happened to Nolan, that they are willing to share everything they know directly with the Wansley family and attorney Crump, and ask the public to redirect its attention to the grieving family. The young men on the boat have retained lawyers and are not speaking publicly. Their critics call that suspicious. Defense attorneys, including those sympathetic to the Wansleys, call it the most ordinary legal advice there is. No version of this story has been tested by charges, cross-examination, or released forensic results. 2 accounts. One boy in the water. That is where the record stands. Which is exactly why what the family did next made national news. On July 7th, the day the coroner confirmed the identification, the Wansley family retained Ben Crump, the civil rights attorney whose name is attached to many of the most consequential death investigations of the last decade. His stated mission, in the phrase he has repeated since, a ferocious pursuit for the truth. 3 days later, on July 10th, the family stood at a podium in New York City beside Crump and Reverend Al Sharpton. What they announced reshaped the case. First, a fully independent investigation with the family's own investigators interviewing witnesses from the island. Second, and most consequentially, an independent autopsy. Nolan's body was flown from Mississippi to Washington, D.C., to be examined by Dr. Roger Mitchell, a nationally respected forensic pathologist and former chief medical examiner for the District of Columbia. Crump was open about why him. The family wanted a doctor with no ties to Mississippi law enforcement. Former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick is funding that examination. Filmmaker Tyler Perry reached out to cover funeral costs. Reverend Sharpton will officiate the service. The reason the family gave for all of it was trust, or the absence of it. Crump invoked Mississippi's history directly, telling the room that for Black Americans this history is not something read about in books but lived, and warning against any instinct to sweep the case under the rug. Sharpton addressed the racial question in the formulation that has been quoted everywhere since: "We're not bringing in race, but we're not discounting race either." The pressure widened beyond the family. Mississippi Congressman Benny Thompson publicly urged a full, transparent, and timely investigation. The NOC posted its support. And the story that spent its first days carried almost entirely by local outlets and independent media became, by the second week, national news on every network. The independent autopsy results were expected that Friday. Canceled flights delayed the body's arrival in Washington, and Crump said Saturday the results were expected very soon. As of this recording, they have not been released. And while a family waited for science, the internet decided it couldn't wait for anything. There is a second story running underneath this case, and it is one this channel refuses to participate in, so I'm going to name it instead. Within days of Nolan's death, viral posts began circulating detailed alternative narratives about what happened to him. Some named young people. Some invented timelines. At least one spread so widely that Nolan's own mother publicly distanced herself from it, and the family's legal team declined to vouch for it. You will not hear those stories detailed here because repeating an unverified accusation with a caveat attached is still repeating it, and every unverified name attached to this case belongs to someone's living child. It got worse than rumors. According to reporting covered by Law and Crime, AI-generated videos began circulating that appeared to show Christine Wansley herself, fabricated footage of a grieving mother, invented statements in her mouth. She posted publicly calling the videos fake and begging people to leave her family alone. Her real request, in her real words on her real page, keep the family in your prayers and respect their privacy. The young men from the boat, meanwhile, have received death threats, according to the Cajun Navy vice president who helped search for Nolan. Threats aimed at teenagers who have been charged with nothing. And through all of it, the person at the center of this case keeps being described by everyone who actually knew him the same way. At the press conference, Christine asked protesters planning demonstrations to keep them peaceful and gave the reason. Nolan didn't like fights. He didn't even like arguments. He was the kid who diffused the room. A family is grieving a son while fighting a war on 3 fronts. For answers from the state, against fabrications from strangers, and for the space to simply mourn. Whatever the autopsies eventually say, that part of this story is already true, and it should shame the corners of the internet responsible for it. So let's end where the case actually is. On the edge of its biggest moment, 2 autopsies now hold this case in their hands, and it's worth 30 seconds to understand what each can and cannot do. An autopsy determines cause of death, the medical event that ended a life, and informs manner of death, the classification, accident, homicide, natural, undetermined. The state's examination was completed on July 7th. But its findings wait on toxicology, which routinely takes weeks. The independent examination in Washington may report sooner. If the 2 agree, the case gains its first fixed point. If they differ, everything you've watched tonight becomes the opening chapter of a much longer story. And separately from both, the family's forensic specialists are working on the phone because deleted data is often not as gone as the person who deleted it believed. The investigation remains open. The sheriff's department is still asking anyone with photos, videos, or first-hand accounts from Horn Island on July 4th to come forward. Nothing in this case is settled, and this channel will correct the record in future videos wherever tonight's record gets overtaken by facts. So I leave you with the question from the middle of this video, because I meant it. Was the sheriff wrong to say no foul play was suspected just days in, or right to try to cool a firestorm? Tell me below, and tell me where you're watching from, because Nolan's family has said the attention of strangers is part of what keeps the pressure on. And if this story moved you, the like button costs you nothing, and it helps Nolan's story reach people who have never heard his name. Right now, that reach is one of the only things anyone can give this family. On the evening of July 3rd, an 18-year-old baked salmon for his parents, hugged his mother, and walked out the door with his phone in his hand and his keys in his pocket. Within 3 days, the phone and the keys had come home. Nolan hasn't. Not yet. Not in the way that matters most to a family that is owed the truth, whatever the truth turns out to be. His mother wrote that God took his time creating her son. The least the rest of us can do is take the time to get his story right. When the autopsy results are released, the next video in this series will be live within 24 hours. If you want the full picture of how cases like this get solved and how they get lost, the next video is on your screen right now. I'll see you there.